He had traveled through time and had become the 9th prince of the great Xia dynasty. But this identity had brought Lu Chen quite a few troubles. Lu Chen looked at the imperial edict in his hand and heaved a deep sigh. At that moment, a woman wearing a green long dress with a graceful figure entered the hall where Lu Chen was. Seeing Lu Chen's troubled expression, the woman consoled him. "Chenner, there's nothing dangerous about the north, and besides, being far from the capital city might actually be a good place for you." The woman's voice was gentle and crisp, like a spring breeze that touches one's heart. Lu Chen looked up at the woman before him, and the worries on his face were instantly swept away. The woman was named Chu Yuqin, and in the past she was a maid to his mother, but his mother had always treated her like a sister, so Lu Chen also called her Madame Chu. When Lu Chen was 10 years old, his mother passed away, and since then, it had always been Chu Yuqin who took care of him. He hadn't been in this world long before he regained the memories from his life on Earth. But those memories weren't of much help to him. Unlike the protagonists in novels who could do everything, aside from some common knowledge, he didn't know much about science and engineering, and he could hardly remember any ancient poetry, even if he had memorized poetry every day in high school. By this time he had forgotten it all, so he was no different from ancient people. As for political matters, Lu Chen was completely clueless, but he knew one thing for certain. That was never to get involved in the struggle for the throne, otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he might end up dead. His mother was born into the aristocratic Chu family from the south, so if he wanted to get involved in the struggle for the throne, he wouldn't be entirely without support. Moreover, there had always been people trying to tempt him to vie for that position, but luckily, he was aware of his own limitations. The life he lived now with everything provided for him was actually not bad. He didn't need to take any risks. It was just a pity that he would soon have to head to the harsh and cold lands of the north to suffer. Perhaps it was because he appeared too inept, only knowing how to enjoy life. The emperor of the great Xia dynasty, his father, had used his coming of age as an excuse to arrange a marriage with Mu Zixuan for him and instructed him to govern North City. If it had been in the past, who knows how many people would have wanted to marry Mu Zixuan, the first talented woman of the capital city. But now it was different. Mu Zixuan's family had connections with a rebellious clan, and although the Mu family had produced a writ of protection against execution to save themselves, their family's status had plummeted. Anyone with the slightest political acumen knew that marrying Mu Zixuan would virtually eliminate any chance of becoming the crown prince. Lu Chen didn't care about the position of the crown prince. He was only concerned that the Mu family's connection with the rebellious clan might one day affect his comfortable life after marrying Mu Zixuan. Worried as he was, this was a marriage bestowed by his father the emperor, and he could not refuse it. He could only accept it. At this moment, the corners of Lu Chen's mouth turned up slightly, revealing a faint smile as he said, "Madam Chu, if I go to North City, won't you feel lonely here in the capital city alone?" Aside from being a maid to Lu Chen's mother, Chu Yuqin had another special identity. She came from the Chu family, and in front of Lu Chen, she represented the interests of the entire Chu family. However, once Lu Chen married Mu Zixuan and went to North City, it would mean he had completely lost the possibility of becoming the crown prince. The Chu family would no longer bet on him, and Chu Yuqin would likely leave him too. Chu Yuqin had reached the 9th grade in strength. In this world, there were not many 9th grade masters throughout the entire great Xia dynasty, and the Chu family wouldn't allow a 9th grade master to follow a useless prince. Chu Yuqin smiled and then replied, "If you go to North City, I will follow you there." Hearing this, Lu Chen was momentarily stunned. Lu Chen asked with puzzlement, "Madam Chu, are you sure you want to come with me to North City?" Chu Yuqin answered with a smile, "Of course, I promised your mother I would protect you for life. You're asking this question. Could it be that once you have a wife, you no longer want your auntie?" Lu Chen quickly said, "How could that be? I can't wait for you to come with me to North City, Madam Chu. Without you, I might not even be able to sleep." As he said this, Lu Chen glanced at Chu Yuqin. Chu Yuqin was 28 this year, yet still peerlessly graceful. Dressed in pale blue cloud attire, her unmatched beauty was flawless. with the snowy whiteness of her delicate face accented by a faint blush. She was pretty and delicate, with crystal-clear eyes like rippling springs. Her lips curved gently in a smile, serene with an almost watery tenderness. Her black hair was combed up in the back, twisted into a lofty style, with the scent of her fragrant hair cascading over her shoulders like willow threads in the breeze. The dark pearl on her jade hairpin set against her lustrous black hair shone brilliantly, and her pale blue cloud attire accentuated her exquisite figure with endless charm. Lu Chen's feelings for Chu Yuqin were rather complicated, but there was one thing he knew for sure. He craved her. If Chu Yuqin were to leave him, he would really hate to let her go. At that moment, Chu Yuqin spoke with indulgent affection. "All right, stop your teasing, and prepare for your wedding instead." A few days later, the North Prince Mansion was abuzz with excitement inside and out, with festoons and red lanterns hanging everywhere. Today was Lu Chen's big day, and nearly every official, whether close to Lu Chen or not, was present. After the wedding banquet had concluded, Lu Chen could hardly wait to get to the bridal chamber. Over the past few days, Lu Chen had made peace with it. No matter what crimes Mu Zixuan's family had committed, she was now wed to him, and there was no need for him to dwell on it too much. Now that Mu Zixuan was married to him, she was his princess, and just thinking about the rumors of Mu Zixuan being a great beauty excited him immensely. Unlike Chu Yuqin, although Lu Chen longed for Chu Yuqin, she had a special status after all, whereas Mu Zixuan had just become his wife, someone he could truly be with. Upon entering the bridal chamber, Lu Chen's gaze instantly locked onto the wedding bed. Seated on the bed was a woman, wearing a bright red bridal gown with her face covered by a veil. Although her face was concealed, her graceful figure already captivated Lu Chen's heart. On either side of the woman stood two maids, both very beautiful. In Lu Chen's former life, it would have been very difficult for him to marry a beauty like these maids. With a heart full of excitement, Lu Chen approached Mu Zixuan and took a jade stick from one of the maid's hands to gently lift the veil. The next moment, an exceptionally beautiful face came into view. Mu Zixuan looked like a fairy who had descended to the mortal realm, or the mysterious woman of the 9 heavens incarnate, leaving Lu Chen completely mesmerized. Blushing, Mu Zixuan said with a hint of shyness, "Darling, it's time to drink." Seeing Mu Zixuan's shy manner, Lu Chen could no longer hold back and pounced on her. The two maids were about to remind Lu Chen to drink the nuptial wine, but seeing that he had already commenced the nuptial rites, they quietly stood aside to serve. After an indeterminate amount of time, Lu Chen, holding Mu Zixuan in his arms on the bed, completely relaxed. Perhaps this was the life he had been longing for. But it was then that an unfamiliar woman's voice rang out. Ding. Congratulations, host, for obtaining your first wife and activating the system of lots of sons and lots of blessings. The newlywed gift pack has been issued. Would you like to claim it? Seeing the blue interface before his eyes, Lu Chen was just as stunned as he was when he first saw Mu Zixuan's beautiful visage. He even suspected that he was hallucinating due to overexertion, which might have left him physically weakened. Then, he stared intently at the blue interface and raised his hand to select yes. Right after that, the woman's voice rang out again. Newcomer's gift pack has been claimed. As the notification sound ended, many items appeared before Lu Chen. Congratulations, host, for obtaining 1 dragon and tiger pill, 1 realm-breaking pill, a desert eagle with 500 bullets, 50 grenades, and 1 dragon phoenix tree seed. Lu Chen didn't know what these items were for. He first glanced warily at the beauty beside him, Mu Zixuan, who had already fallen asleep from exhaustion. Then he reassuringly raised his hand again and tapped on the words, Dragon and Tiger Pill on the blue interface. Dragon and Tiger Pill. Upon consumption, it can greatly enhance the host's combat strength and ensure a higher chance of producing offspring. The next moment, a beautifully crafted porcelain bottle appeared in Lu Chen's hand. Lu Chen's eyes lit up. It was real. Immediately after, with a thought and a wave of his hand, the small porcelain bottle returned to the blue interface. Lu Chen then clicked on the other rewards. Realm-breaking pill. Upon consumption, the host can become a first-rank martial artist. Desert Eagle. This gun is very powerful and can protect the host to live more safely in this world. Dragon Phoenix Tree Seed. The dragon phoenix tree can be cultivated with the host's blood. When the dragon phoenix tree grows, if a woman drinks tea brewed from its leaves, it will increase her feelings towards the host, and the seed can help the host have more quality offspring. Excited by the descriptions of these items, Lu Chen hadn't expected that just when he had resigned himself to living a normal life as a mere prince, a multiply and prosper system would suddenly appear. Lu Chen immediately asked in his mind, "System, can I receive rewards for every child a woman bears for me?" Although he now had the system, Lu Chen didn't believe it came without any requirements. If every woman who bore his child granted him rewards, then he would quickly become invincible. All he would need to do then was to farm at home every day and do nothing else. The woman's rating must reach 90 to qualify. Hearing the system's voice, Lu Chen turned to look at Mu Zixuan again. At that moment, a recognition interface popped up. Name, Mu Zixuan. Identification, daughter of Mu Changtian, a citizen of the Great Xia Dynasty, Queen of the North Prince. Rating, 93. Favorability, 60. You have made her very satisfied today. Seeing that Mu Zixuan's rating was 93, Lu Chen smiled. For such a beautiful woman, it would indeed be unreasonable to score less than 90. Then Lu Chen glanced at the two maids in the room. They were also quite beautiful and might have ratings of 90 or above. Name, Zhou Xiaoxiao. Identification, daughter of Zhou Wangtian. After Zhou Wangtian's family was raided, she was sent to the Ministry of Punishments. Later the Mu family bought her, and today she came as a dowry maid accompanying the Mu family's young miss, Mu Zixuan, to marry into the North Prince Mansion. Rating, 90. Favorability, 50. Seeing the introduction of this maid, Lu Chen was momentarily stunned. He was not surprised that Zhou Xiaoxiao had a rating of 90. After all, she indeed looked quite beautiful. He was shocked that this woman was actually the daughter of Zhou Wangtian. Zhou Wangtian was the man who had caused trouble for the Mu family with accusations of rebellion. Whether it was true or not, Lu Chen wasn't sure, but it was officially labeled as rebellion. The Mu family was bold enough to rescue her even though she had been sent to the Ministry of Punishments. Moreover, they sent her to the North Prince Mansion, which was like setting a trap for him, wasn't it? If someone with ulterior motives found out about this, it was very likely that he too would be implicated. Afterward, Lu Chen glanced at the other equally beautiful maid. Name, Zhou Yuyu. Status, daughter of Zhou Wangtian, younger sister of Zhou Xiaoxiao. After her father Zhou Wangtian's household was raided, she was sent to the Ministry of Punishments and later bought by the Mu family with money. Today she is accompanying the Mu family's eldest daughter, Mu Zixuan, as a maid in her marriage to the North Prince Mansion. Rating, 91. Favorability, 80. She fell in love with you at first sight. Seeing Zhou Yuyu's information, Lu Chen furrowed his brows. It was exactly as he had suspected. When he had entered the bridal chamber earlier, he had been curious as to why Mu Zixuan's accompanying maids were so beautiful. These were not simply maids. They were clearly two young ladies. However, on second thought, both of them had a rating of 90, so if he had children with them, that would satisfy the system's conditions. This was like getting two for the price of one. But how should he handle the two women's status? It was really too sensitive a matter. Although they were bought out with money by the Mu family and perhaps the process was legal, they were still daughters of a criminal, only fit to be slaves. At that moment, Zhu Xiaoxiao and Zhou Yuyu stood beside the bridal chamber, shivering as they saw Lu Chen busy earlier, now staring straight at them instead of sleeping. They had witnessed Lu Chen's violence just now. They had entered the prince's mansion as maids for the bridal chamber. Even as Mu Zixuan consummated her marriage, they were to attend to Lu Chen and Mu Zixuan, such as wiping sweat and the like, or even replacing the mistress in serving Lu Chen when she was not able. They had already accepted their fate, and for the two daughters of a criminal, being favored by Lu Chen could actually be considered their good fortune. The reason the Mu family chose them as accompanying maids was precisely with this in mind, to have the North Prince Mansion protect them. Lu. Chen coughed and then said, "You can go to sleep now." In unison they replied, "Yes, Prince." Then, They turned and walked towards the adjoining room next to the bridal chamber. Watching the graceful silhouettes of the two sisters, Lu Chen couldn't help but think that ancient society was truly sinful. He was, however, already accustomed to it and didn't even feel uncomfortable watching the two sisters from the side earlier. After they had left the bridal chamber, Lu Chen took out a realm-breaking pill and swallowed it directly. Immediately, a warm flow entered his body, and Lu Chen suddenly felt extremely relaxed all over. Subsequently, a blue interface appeared in front of him. Host, Lu Chen Realm. First rank cultivation technique, none divine skills, none weapon, desert eagle, offspring, none Lu. Chen glanced at it and then closed the system interface. He felt restless at that moment. Since arriving in this world, he occasionally exercised his body, but he had never practiced any martial arts and never had the strength of a martial artist. Having the strength of a martial artist for the first time, Lu Chen was eager to test it out. However, after glancing at the beauty who had already fallen asleep next to him, Lu Chen ultimately dismissed the idea. Everything would wait until tomorrow morning. The next morning, Chu Yuqin came to the courtyard where Lu Chen was staying. Seeing that the bridal chamber of Lu Chen and Mu Zixuan was still closed, she asked the prince's mansion soldiers at the door, "Has Chener not gotten up yet?" The soldier stammered and replied awkwardly, "Well, the prince is already up, but he is still busy. Madam Chu, please return." No sooner had the soldier finished speaking than Chu Yuqin faintly heard some noises coming from inside the room. Chu Yuqin, as a 9th grade martial artist, had a very high status in North Prince Mansion. She was in charge of all the guards in the mansion. Still, even so, the soldiers guarding the courtyard gate felt it was somewhat inappropriate for Chu Yuqin to wake up their prince. In the past, there was no issue with Chu Yuqin waking up their prince, but now that the prince was married, it would be very awkward if she happened across Lu Chen and the prince's wife being playful with each other. For instance, right now, although the courtyard gate was a bit far from the bridal chamber, one could still faintly hear some noises coming from inside. Chu Yuqin frowned slightly. Though she was still a virgin as a grown woman, she naturally knew the reason for those sounds. Chu Yuqin muttered to herself, "This little rascal is already causing trouble early in the morning." At that moment, Chu Yuqin turned to the soldier beside her and said, "You go down. From now on, the soldiers guarding the courtyard gate will be replaced with female guards." The soldier immediately responded, "Yes, Madam Chu." Having said his piece, the soldier hastened to flee this potential trouble spot. After a round of playfulness, Lu Chen held Mu Zixuan tightly in his arms. At this moment, Mu Zixuan's complexion was rosy, and she dared not look directly into Lu Chen's eyes. Lu Chen stroked Mu Zixuan's hair and asked with a smile, "Darling, are you satisfied with me, your husband?" Mu Zixuan responded softly with a before she married into the prince's mansion. She had been a little worried that he might just seem like a child, but all her concerns dissipated upon meeting Lu Chen. After spending the night together, she discovered that the North Prince's body had developed well. Although not exceptionally robust, he was very fit. Moreover, he was also handsome, fitting perfectly the image of the ideal husband she had in mind. The Mu family had been affected by a traitorous family and would not be able to recover for a long while. Marrying a prince was also considered her fortune. Originally, her father had raised her to be the crown princess consort, but she did not wish to be one herself. In her view, marrying a leisurely prince was much better than being a crown princess consort. Although the North Prince might not be mature enough in mind, this also meant that she, the princess consort, would have a lot of authority in North Prince Mansion. Moreover, the fiefdom of the North Prince was far from the capital city, and after leaving, they might never be able to return to the capital. Just the thought of being far from the political center made Mu Zixuan incredibly happy. At this time, Lu Chen said, "We will be departing for North City tomorrow. After we get up, I will accompany you to see your father." Mu Zixuan replied, "All right." Afterward, with the assistance of 2 beautiful maidservants, Lu Chen took a quick bath and then stepped out of the room. When Lu Chen saw Chu Yuqin standing at the entrance of the courtyard, his eyes lit up and he immediately used the system to identify her personal data. Name Chu Yuqin, identity, servant of Chu Yue, sworn sister to Jin Lan, representative of the Chu family's interests, Wang Han's wife, currently leading North Prince Mansion's guards. North Prince's first love. Rating: 97. Favorability: 98. Seeing Chu Yuqin's identity information, Lu Chen felt a bit puzzled. Wang Han had died on the day Chu Yuqin married him. They didn't even consummate the marriage, so how could she be considered his wife? And what about this North Prince's first love? Although he admittedly was quite enamored with her, this identity information seemed a bit unreliable. But on the other hand, Chu Yuqin's rating was actually 97, and her favorability toward him had reached 98. This only further stimulated the wicked thoughts in his heart. At that moment, Lu Chen said with a smile, "Madam Chu, why are you eavesdropping so early in the morning?" Hearing that, Chu Yuqin spit out in disgust, then scolded, "You little rascal, you're up to mischief early in the morning. It's important to carry on the family line, but you should also take care of your health." Lu Chen replied with a laugh, "Madam Chu, don't worry. I'm strong and can handle it." Chu Yuqin gave Lu Chen a glance and then said, "Eat your breakfast, then go see Duke Mu. Even though he was implicated a while ago, he still has considerable influence in the military. You will need his help to settle things when you leave for your fiefdom in North City." Lu Chen, puzzled, asked, "Why do I need his help to settle things for my departure to my fiefdom in North City?" Chu Yuqin replied with a smile, "Chenner, you don't think that your trip to North City will go smoothly without any issues, do you?" Lu Chen paused for a moment, then said, "Madam Chu, what do you mean by that?" "Don't scare me," Chu Yuqin said. "Although you are most likely out of the running for that position, to some people only the dead pose no threat." Lu Chen naturally understood what Chu Yuqin meant. However, in his view, since he had always behaved like a useless person and had never made connections with any significant officials, it seemed unlikely that anyone would view him as a threat. Chu Yuqin continued explaining, "Madam Chu knows what you are thinking. You certainly believe that since you have never shown any interest in that position, and have never befriended any court officials, no one would see you as a threat. But you've forgotten one thing, your identity. Even if you do nothing, your identity ensures that some people will inevitably see you as a threat," Lu Chen realized in an instant. He had always thought that as long as he was offensively useless at home, doing nothing, and not getting involved in the succession struggle, he would be safe. But he seemed to have forgotten his mother's strong political status. His mother came from the Chu family, representing their interests. From his birth, he had been placed in the Chu family's camp. Even if he did nothing, others would assume he had a special relationship with the Chu family. In the eyes of some, if they wanted to collaborate with the Chu family, they would have to deal with him, the obstacle, because the Chu family might not give up on him. Only with his death could the Chu family possibly give up on him completely, turning to partner with another prince instead. Thinking of this, Lu Chen didn't worry too much. If it were yesterday, he might have been concerned about his safety, but having acquired the system, he already had some reassurance. Then he said, "Madam Chu, I understand what you mean." At this moment, Chu Yuqin's gaze fell upon Mu Zixuan, who was now coming out of a room, assisted by the two sisters from the Zhou family, limping as she walked. Upon seeing Chu Yuqin, Mu Zixuan immediately said, "Greetings to Madam Chu." The princess consort's status was higher than Chu Yuqin's, so it should be Chu Yuqin who initiates the greeting to Mu Zixuan, but Mu Zixuan was very aware of Chu Yuqin standing in the North Prince mansion. Chu Yuqin smiled and nodded. "Zixuan, from now on, Chenner is in your care." Mu Zixuan replied, "Please rest assured, Madam Chu, I will definitely take good care of the prince." Chu Yuqin didn't say anything more. She then turned around and left the courtyard. After breakfast, Lu Chen and Mu Zixuan went to the Duke Mu residence. Duke Mu had a very imposing appearance, looking strong and powerful. Upon seeing Lu Chen, Mu Changtian immediately said, "Greetings to the North Prince." Lu Chen hurriedly replied, "Please, there's no need for such formality. Father-in-law." Mu Changtian sized up Lu Chen, then said, "Please, North Prince." Under Mu Changtian's guidance, Lu Chen was led to the main hall. At that time, Mu Changtian asked, "I wonder what plans the North Prince has in mind following your appointment to North City." Honestly, Mu Changtian had no intention of discussing politics with Lu Chen. For one thing, Lu Chen was young, and furthermore, he had always been an idle prince who hardly ever read books. Of course, This did not mean he underestimated Lu Chen. After all, he was still a prince. When Lu Chen heard Mu Changtian's question, he thought for a moment and replied, "To govern North City well and then live a peaceful life with Zixuan is all I wish for." Upon hearing Lu Chen's response, Mu Changtian immediately regretted asking him this question. Lu Chen was a political novice. He hadn't even understood the implications of what had just been asked. Mu Changtian sighed internally, wondering whether marrying his daughter to the North Prince was a good decision. At this point, Lu Chen initiated the conversation. "I hear that father-in-law has great influence within the military. I will need your help when I go to North City to take up my post." Hearing this, Mu Changtian thought to himself that the North Prince really knew nothing and was still a child. Even though he did have strong influence in the military, it was not something to be plainly spoken of, but this was also okay. The less Lu Chen knew, the more important his daughter would be in the prince's mansion, which could be considered a good thing for her. Mu Changtian then smiled and said, "Rest assured, North Prince. Your journey to North City will undoubtedly be smooth sailing." Mu Changtian did not explicitly say that he would help Lu Chen, for some things in politics cannot be spoken so plainly. However, since he had already assured Lu Chen that his journey to North City would go smoothly, this confirmed that he would definitely send people to protect the North Prince and would also liaise with the military. Although Lu Chen was a political novice, he could understand what Mu Changtian meant. Lu Chen said, "Then I thank you, father-in-law." At this moment, Mu Changtian glanced at the servants in the hall, then said to them, "You all may leave us. I have something to discuss with the North Prince alone." "Yes." The servants then left the hall. After the servants had exited, an intrigued Lu Chen asked, "May I know what matter my father-in-law wishes to discuss with me?" Mu Changtian sending the servants away from the hall before having a discussion surely meant that it was something very important. Mu Changtian then said, "North Prince, I must remind you that even if you safely reach North City, you won't be safe at all times." Lu Chen asked, "Why is that?" Mu Changtian knew Lu Chen was a political novice, so he decided to be clear about it. "Your mother is the eldest daughter of the Chu family, which naturally aligns them with your faction. Although you have left Capital City, in the eyes of most princes you still pose a significant threat to them. Moreover, the Chu family might still have expectations of you, a view I share, and so will those princes. If you are still here, the Chu family might continue to support you, but if you were..." Mu Changtian did not continue, as the rest of his words would be somewhat disrespectful, and he believed Lu Chen must have grasped his meaning. Upon hearing Mu Changtian's warning, Lu Chen instantly understood what he meant, especially since Chu Yuqin had reminded him about it just that morning. Lu Chen sighed to himself. His own situation was indeed perilous. If he remained alive, the Chu family might always harbor expectations of him, and being a major family in the south, their support was crucial for any prince. If he died, the Chu family would lose their primary candidate for support and would then shift to backing another prince. Thus, for any prince seeking the Chu family's alliance, the most likely first step would be to eliminate him, the expendable prince, and completely cut off the Chu family's concerns. What a headache. Ever since arriving in this world, he had planned to live a life of leisure without competing for the throne. Unexpectedly, his mere heritage brought him so many problems, but there was nothing he could do. One's birth was determined by fate and could not be changed. Now he had only two choices. One was to find a way to completely turn against the Chu family, making everyone believe they had severed ties. The other choice was to eliminate all those wanting to get rid of him, securing his safety. Choosing the second option would mean he was embarking on the path of the emperor. From a personal standpoint, there was no way Lu Chen could entirely turn his back on the Chu family. Firstly, his maternal grandfather had always treated him well, and the Chu family had continuously provided him protection. Plus, his first love in this world, Chu Yuqin, was from the Chu family. He simply couldn't bring himself to sever ties completely with the Chu family. Moreover, even if he did break away from the Chu family, those princes might not necessarily spare him after all. No one knew whether this was just a ruse performed by him and the Chu family for show. Therefore, eliminating him was still the most foolproof strategy. In doing so, those princes would still likely attempt to make a move against him. That left him with only one option: to embark on the path of the emperor. After some thought, Lu Chen figured that previously, he indeed would have struggled to compete with the other princes for that position. But now things were different. He had the system of lots of sons and lots of blessings. As long as he took multiple consorts and had many children after arriving in North City, he could quickly enhance his power. That position might not be unattainable for him after all. With this in mind, Lu Chen said to Mu Changtian, "Thank you for the reminder. Father-in-law, I understand your point." Having left Mu Mansion, Mu Zixuan tentatively asked from inside the carriage, "Prince, what did father say to you?" Lu Chen smiled faintly and then pulled Mu Zixuan into his embrace. "He didn't say much. He urged me to take good care of you." At this moment, Mu Zixuan was somewhat conflicted. She didn't know whether she should tell Lu Chen about the Zhou sisters, considering their identities were extremely sensitive. Then, Lu Chen caressed her hair gently as he continued, "My consort, once we arrive in North City, you should bear many children for me." Hearing such a direct statement, Mu Zixuan's face instantly turned crimson, although she was already a married woman. She had just begun to engage in such matters. Seeing Mu Zixuan's shy expression, Lu Chen wanted to tease her right away, but ultimately he restrained himself. Meanwhile, Imperial Palace Royal Garden. A middle-aged man in a yellow python dragon robe stood in the pavilion by the lotus pond, hands clasped behind him, watching the fishes swim in the pond. A person clad in black armor suddenly appeared behind him. "Your Majesty, the North Prince has just visited Mu Mansion." During that visit, Duke Mu ordered the servants to leave the hall, and he closed the door to talk about certain matters with the North Prince alone. Hearing this, the Sum Emperor muttered to himself, "It seems that Mu Changtian holds Chen in high regard." At this, the Sum Emperor turned to look at the red-robed eunuch standing beside him. "Mr. Lu, what do you think? After Chen leaves capital city, will the Chu family simply give up on him?" Hearing this question, the red-robed eunuch promptly replied, "Your Majesty, I dare not speculate recklessly." The Sum Emperor expressed his displeasure. "Just speak your mind." The red-robed eunuch hurriedly said, "In your servant's view, it's highly likely the Chu family will abandon the North Prince and choose to support another prince." The Sum Emperor asked with interest, "Oh, then who do you think the Chu family is most likely to choose?" Mr. Lu trembled with fear. Always by the Sum Emperor's side, he knew things others did not. The Sum Emperor loathed the Chu family to the bone and dreamed of eliminating them. If he suggested who the Chu family might support next, wouldn't he be endangering that prince? The Sum Emperor continued, "Speak boldly. You will not be punished." Mr. Lu immediately knelt to the ground and then said, "Your Majesty, your servant thinks the Chu family is most likely to support Prince Lu Shuyun. The mother of Prince Lu Shuyun was also from the south, so if the Chu family was to choose another ally, they would undoubtedly focus on Prince Lu Shuyun." Upon hearing Mr. Lu's reply, the Sum Emperor merely smiled faintly, murmuring, "Supporting Shuyun, eh? Then Chen's journey will probably not be peaceful." At that moment, the soldier in black armor behind the Sum Emperor asked, "Your Majesty, shall I assign someone to protect the North Prince?" The Sum Emperor said indifferently, "No need, someone will protect him. If he truly runs into trouble, it only means his fate wasn't strong enough." Evening. In the room, Lu Chen wanted to have a proper talk with his consort, but remembering they had been intimate just yesterday and earlier this morning, he decided against it. Seeing her darling appeared rather distressed, Mu Zixuan eventually mustered the courage and said, "Prince, why don't you take Yu and Xiao?" Hearing this, Lu Chen's eyes brightened, not expecting his consort to be so magnanimous. But he still responded, "My consort, how could you bear to push me into the arms of other women?" Mu Zixuan blushed and replied, "Prince, you were staring at them all morning. How could she possibly fail to guess Lu Chen's thoughts?" Mu Zixuan continued, "Besides, both of them were my dowry maids. Serving you is their duty." Holding Mu Zixuan, Lu Chen said, "To have a wife like you, what more could I ask for?" At that point, Mu Zixuan called out to Zhou Yu and Zhou Xiaoxiao, "Yu Xiaoxiao, come here." Then, the candlelight within the room flickered. Ding, congratulations to the host on gaining another wife and concubine. Reward, Chi refinement mantra. Ding. Congratulations to the host on gaining another wife and concubine. Reward, rejuvenating skill. Ding. The host and his wife and concubine have reached a heart-to-heart connection, obtaining 1 Barrett along with 20 Barrett bullets. Lu Chen, who had been basking in happiness, was jolted back to reality by the system's prompt. He hadn't expected to receive such generous rewards. If he was already getting such gifts without having any children yet, wouldn't the rewards be even more bountiful once he had offspring? Freewebnovel.com's Lu Chen was musing over this. The system's prompt sounded again. Ding. The rewards for the first communication and interaction with the host's wife and concubine will be more generous. Only then did Lu Chen realize, so that was it. He had thought that every communication and interaction would yield such rich rewards. At this moment, Lu Chen checked the new rewards he had received. Chi refinement mantra. A legendary cultivation technique said to help people become immortals. Can be practiced by fostering a relationship through communication with wives and concubines. Rejuvenating skill. Can use spiritual energy to heal some injuries. When cultivated to perfection, there is a chance to revive those on the verge of death. This technique can be practiced by fostering a relationship through communication with wives and concubines. Seeing these 2 rewards, Lu Chen was completely dumbstruck. Isn't this the martial arts world? Could this world actually contain cultivation techniques like the Chi refinement mantra and rejuvenating skill that are only found in the immortal world? But then again, if one day he became an immortal, wouldn't the throne of the great Xia dynasty be readily within his grasp? Thinking of this, Lu Chen happily hugged Zhou Yuyu, Zhou Xiaoxiao, and Mu Zixuan, the 3 of them. You 3 are truly my treasures. Hearing this, the Zhou sisters felt incredibly happy. Now that they had finally become women of the North Prince, perhaps once they got to North City they wouldn't have to hide anymore. However, just then Lu Chen suddenly spoke up. By the way, my consort, I feel like you might be hiding something from me. Hearing this, Mu Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. She had not expected Lu Chen's intuition to be so accurate. Lu Chen continued, You are now my wife, and I would rather my women not keep things from me. Just as Mu Zixuan was about to say something, Lu Chen patted the waists of Zhou Yuyu and Zhou Xiaoxiao and said with a smile, If I'm not mistaken, you 2 are the daughters of Zhou Wangtian, aren't you? Hearing this, the 3 women were greatly shocked. They had not anticipated that Lu Chen already knew this. Zhou Yuyu and Zhou Xiaoxiao quickly got up from Lu Chen's embrace, then knelt on the bed, kowtowing as they said, Your Highness, please forgive us, we did not mean to deceive you. All of this is our fault, please do not blame the consort. Mu Zixuan opened her mouth to say something, but then closed it after all. It was she who had been in the wrong. Zhou Wangtian and her father, Mu Changtian, were known as the 2 Sky Kings of the Great Xia dynasty, and their families had always had a good relationship. Mu Zixuan and the Zhou sisters were as close as sisters. She really couldn't bear to see them being imprisoned in the Ministry of Punishments as playthings for others. Seeing the Zhou sisters so panicked, Lu Chen's mouth curved upward slightly, then he said with a smile, Indeed, you 3 have done wrong to keep such an important matter from me. However, I can give you 3 an opportunity to atone for your sins through meritorious deeds. Hearing this, Mu Zixuan's brows immediately relaxed, and she quickly asked, Your Highness, how should we atone through meritorious deeds? Lu Chen looked at Zhou Yuyu and Zhou Xiaoxiao and said, It's simple. All you need to do is bear me several children. Hearing this, the 3 women instantly understood. Then Zhou Yuyu and Zhou Xiaoxiao hurriedly thanked him, saying, Thank you for taking us in, Your Highness. We will certainly bear you many descendants in the future. Lu Chen then said, All right, you 2 sisters go rest first. Once we get to North City, I will take you as my concubines. The 2 of them spoke in unison. Yes, Prince. Then the pair left the room, limping away, and went to the adjacent chamber. After they left, Mu Zixuan cautiously asked, Prince, do you really intend to take in the 2 of them? Although Lu Chen was 3 years younger than herself, he was still the prince, and Mu Zixuan couldn't be sure about his temperament. Lu Chen pulled Mu Zixuan's delicate body toward himself, wrapped his arms around her, and whispered in her ear, If I didn't plan to take them in, do you think I would have touched them just now? Hearing this, Mu Zixuan realized the point. Indeed, Lu Chen apparently knew the identities of the two Zhou sisters all along, yet he didn't seem to care about their origins earlier. Lu Chen continued, "My love, I hope this is the first and last time something like this happens. Do you understand what I mean?" Mu Zixuan promptly replied, "Yes, Prince. I will not keep any secrets from you in the future." Lu Chen kissed Mu Zixuan and, stroking her body, said, "That's what I like to hear from my cherished consort. By the way, I'm not unreasonable. There's no need for you to be so cautious. After all, you are the mistress of this household." Mu Zixuan, 3 years his senior, but these past few days, she completely acted like a little woman, cautious in both her speech and actions, giving the impression that she was an outsider. Blushing, Mu Zixuan said, "Prince, I will adjust to my role as quickly as I can," Lu Chen added. "Also, stop calling me Prince. Call me darling." Mu Zixuan replied softly, "Yes, darling." "All right, get some sleep now. We're setting off for North City tomorrow." "Yes." Then Lu Chen, holding Mu Zixuan's warm and tender body, fell into the land of dreams. Early the next morning, before the sky fully brightened, everyone at North Prince Mansion began their preparations. Lu Chen wasn't one to rise early, but since he had to leave the capital city today, he too had to get up early from the warmth of his bed. Standing at the entrance of North Prince Mansion, Lu Chen looked over his home, feeling a certain gloom in his heart. The North Prince Mansion held all his memories since childhood, and now the moments of his past played like a movie in his mind. Leaving this time, he didn't know when he would return, as without the seigneur's orders, he could not come back to the capital. Determined, Lu Chen made a silent vow to grow stronger as quickly as possible. The day he returned to the capital city would be the day he commanded the world. At that moment, a group of soldiers clad in armor and riding horses arrived at the entrance of North Prince Mansion. The leading officer, Li Feng, seeing Lu Chen, immediately half-kneeled and said, "General Li Feng, at your service, Prince. On your journey to North City to establish your fief, I will do everything in my power to ensure the safety of you and your household." Then, Lu Chen's eyes emitted a subtle gleam that others might not notice, and an information bar appeared before him. Name, Li Feng. Identity, one of the generals in the Great Xiahuben Army, currently serving as a temporary general for the Great Xia North Prince's Guard team. Strength, 7th rank. Loyalty, 50. Seeing this information bar, Lu Chen was momentarily startled. So the system of lots of suns and lots of blessings could display information about men as well. This was incredibly useful to him. Lu Chen was very satisfied with Mu Changtian's arrangements. Though Li Feng was only a 7th grade martial artist in this world, the strength of a 7th grade martial artist could already be considered as a match for 100. Moreover, the soldiers Li Feng brought with him were mostly 2nd and 3rd grade. There were no ordinary soldiers among them. In other words, they were all elite, with no cannon fodder. Lu Chen then said, "General Li, rise. I believe in your strength to adequately protect both me and my family." "Thank you, Prince." Li Feng stood up as soon as he finished speaking. Afterward, Li Feng whispered into Lu Chen's ear, "Prince, Duke Mu asked me to remind you that Prince Lu Shuyun has already sent people to North City." Hearing this, Lu Chen frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. "Prince Lu Shuyun? What is he sending people to North City for, to kill me?" Lu Chen soon understood that Lu Shuyun's mother also came from a great clan in the south. So if Lu Shuyun wanted to lay claim as the legitimate successor, he would need the Chu family's support the most. If he died, the Chu family would inevitably choose someone who also descended from a great clan of the south. He had not expected Mu Changtian to obtain even this kind of information. It seemed that although Mu Changtian had been dismissed from his position, he still retained control over the army. No wonder his father, the emperor, was so wary of Mu Changtian. Lu Chen then said, "All right, I got it." Following that, Lu Chen mounted his horse and declared, "Since everyone has arrived, let's set out now. We shall hurry to North City, Lu." Chen was now solely focused on reaching North City and starting on his cultivation journey. The Qi refinement mantra and the rejuvenating skill both required cultivating a relationship with his wives, which essentially referred to matters between a man and a woman. However, It was clearly inconvenient to do so on the road. A stable place was necessary. As for the threats along the way, Lu Chen did not take them to heart. Below a Grandmaster, all were mere mortals. Mortals can't block bullets, and the Desert Eagle and barret in his hand were not for show. Following this, the people from the North Prince Mansion set out in formation, leaving the city with great fanfare. Unlike the time of Lu Chen's wedding, not a single court minister came to see him off today, not even his own father-in-law. Only onlookers among the common folk lined the sides of the road. Lu Chen didn't mind these things. It made no difference to him whether anyone saw him off or not. When the procession passed by an inn, a man dressed in blue brocade garments gazed at the gradually fading figures from the second floor. At this moment, the man asked, "Is everything ready?" "Your Highness, rest assured we have arranged everything properly. Blood Moon Tower has dispatched an 8th grade and 2 9th grade this time," another person replied. "As soon as they leave the jurisdiction of the capital city, Blood Moon Tower's men will take immediate action." Hearing his subordinate's words, Lu Shuyun watched Lu Chen on horseback and murmured to himself, "Had Chu Yuqin not accompanied you to North City, I wouldn't have chosen this method. My dear brother, I wish you a pleasant journey." Initially, Lu Shuyun thought that after Lu Chen left the capital city, the Chu family would completely give up on him, especially since even the Sum Emperor had banished him to the bitter cold land of North City. What Lu Shuyun didn't expect was that Chu Yuqin, a 9th grade master, would actually go to North City with Lu Chen. What did this mean? It meant that the Chu family hadn't given up on Lu Chen at all. Otherwise, the Chu family would never let Chu Yuqin go with him. Since the Chu family had not lost hope, he might as well help the Chu family make a firm decision. It wasn't long before Lu Chen and his company left the city. After leaving the city, Chu Yuqin saw Lu Chen riding a horse and slightly furrowed her willow-like eyebrows. Those people inside the city did not dare to act. But outside the city, it was a different story. Riding on a horse made Lu Chen too obvious a target. If someone shot arrows, it would be hard to guard against. Chu Yuqin immediately rode up beside Lu Chen and said, "Chenner, you should go back to the carriage." Lu Chen turned his head to look at Chu Yuqin, then said, "Madam Chu, rest assured, even if someone wants to make a move against me, they won't do it near the capital city." Chu Yuqin said, "Better safe than sorry. You should listen to your aunt and stay inside the carriage quickly." Chu Yuqin's tone was a bit stern. After all, this involved Lu Chen's safety and was not to be taken lightly. At that moment, Li Feng also came over from afar. "Prince, we are about to leave the jurisdiction of the capital city. You should go inside the carriage. The carriages provided by Duke Mu are reinforced and can withstand most arrows." Seeing both of them say so, Lu Chen no longer insisted on being stubborn. As a first-grade martial artist, he was only a bit stronger than an ordinary person. If someone really attacked him, he would still be unable to react in time. Lu Chen then said, "All right, I leave the surrounding security to you both. If there's any sign of trouble, notify me immediately." With that, Lu Chen returned to the reinforced carriage prepared by Mu Changtian. At this point, Lu Chen and his wife, Mu Zixuan, were separated. If there really was an attack, even if Lu Chen was targeted, Mu Zixuan and the others might still have a chance to survive. As the carriage convoy slowly proceeded on the official road, soon after leaving the jurisdiction of the capital city, a dense forest appeared ahead of the straight path. Li Feng immediately reminded the soldiers of the guard team, "Stay sharp. Look around." Chu Yuqin also told the trusted aides of the prince's mansion, "From now on, don't leave the side of the carriage for half a step." After the convoy entered the forest, the light dimmed dramatically. Through the window, Lu Chen looked outside and, noticing the darkness, realized that danger might be approaching. Immediately, Lu Chen took out the Desert Eagle from the system space and loaded it with bullets. The Desert Eagle had 500 bullets, which ought to be enough. Moreover, he didn't need to deal with the pawns. Li Feng and the others were there for that. He only needed to be ready for those experts who would come directly for him. Just as the convoy reached the depths of the forest, the sound of whizzing came from a distance, followed by countless arrows falling from the sky. Li Feng immediately shouted, "Enemy attack! Protect the prince!" Seeing this, Chu Yuqin quickly drew her sword from her waist. Hearing the various sounds outside, Lu Chen became somewhat tense. He hadn't expected enemies to actually come. At that moment, he heard a scraping noise coming from the carriage, indicating that arrows were striking it. It had to be said, the carriage provided by Duke Mu was truly remarkable, managing to block all the arrows shot by the attackers. In this way, as long as he didn't go out, those arrows couldn't harm him. After the first wave of arrow rain, a group of people dressed in black, wearing masks, and holding large knives charged directly towards the convoy. Most of these attackers were roughly 3rd grade, led by an 8th grade martial artist. Seeing this, Li Feng immediately engaged the assassins in combat along with the guard team. At this time, Lu Chen's trusted aides still did not leave the side of the carriage. Their main task was to protect Lu Chen and his family, preventing the enemy from creating a diversion. Chu Yuqin did not assist Li Feng. She simply stood not far from Lu Chen's carriage, vigilantly observing her surroundings. Chu Yuqin did not believe that the enemy would only send an 8th grade martial artist. The ability to summon so many 3rd and 4th grade warriors in an instant meant that the force behind the assassins was definitely not simple. There must be a 9th grade martial artist yet to come. While Chu Yuqin was on alert, a breeze blew through the forest and the falling leaves split in two mid-air, softly landing on the ground. A sharp light flashed in Chu Yuqin's eyes. The real enemy has arrived. Chu Yuqin had just gotten ready when a black figure appeared on her right side and immediately thrust a sword towards her body. With a light push of her feet, Chu Yuqin's body soared through the air like a feather and leaped into the sky. Then, she turned and swept her sword toward the assassin. The assassin hastily retreated. Not bad for a female swordsman trained by the Chu family. Quick reflexes. Hearing this voice, Chu Yuqin finally got a clear look at the other's face. There were 2 people, and neither of them wore masks. The aura emanating from these 2 suggested that they were at least 9th grade martial artists. Those 3rd grade martial artists all wore masks. Yet these 2 key figures did not. What did this imply? It meant that they did not care if others saw their faces. They either believed that they could kill their targets and silence them today, or their current faces were fake, as they had used disguise skills. Of course, whichever it was, that was not important now. What mattered was how to deal with these 2. At this moment, Chu Yuqin noticed that both men's clothes bore a red moon emblem. Chu Yuqin instantly guessed where they were from. Chu Yuqin spoke coldly. Does Blood Moon Tower realize what it's doing? The North Prince is inside the carriage. If the Sum Emperor finds out that the North Prince was assassinated by Blood Moon Tower, you may be quickly eradicated. Upon hearing this, Lu Tung burst into laughter. Madame Chu loves her jokes. If the Sum Emperor was capable of dealing with us, he would have annihilated Blood Moon Tower long ago, not waited until today. At that moment, White Crane beside Liu Tong said indifferently, Madame Chu, we bear no ill will toward the Chu family. Just step aside and we won't lay a finger on you. After hearing White Crane's words, Chu Yuqin gripped her sword tightly and said icily, To harm the North Prince is to make an enemy of the Chu family. Lu Tung retorted, Give it up. The North Prince is already cast aside by the Sum Emperor. He will never ascend to the throne. What reason does the Chu family have to support him now? White Crane also said, Madame Chu, we're just fulfilling a contract. If you insist on obstructing us, don't blame us if our swords and sabers show no mercy. Chu Yuqin wielded her sword in the air, unleashing a streak of sword chi that drew a line between them. This is the line. Cross it and die. Seeing that Chu Yuqin was unwilling to make way, White Crane and Liu Tong had no choice but to brace themselves for a tough fight. Honestly, they really didn't want to confront Chu Yuqin head-on. Although all of them were 9th grade, there could be a great disparity amongst those of the same grade. Chu Yuqin may just be a woman, but her innate talent in swordsmanship was incredibly high. She was even quite famous throughout the entire Great Sum. But since Chu Yuqin was unwilling to step aside, they had no choice but to fight. White Crane immediately said to Liu Tong, Elder Liu, try to hold her off while I take care of that useless prince. Liu Tong, holding his great iron hammer, said with a chuckle, Great. I've been eager to witness Madame Chu's swordsmanship. Let's see just how formidable the Chu family's #1 female swordsman is. In the midst of speaking, Liu Tong pushed off with his legs, propelling his body towards Chu Yuqin like a cannonball. Chu Yuqin frowned and swung her sword. Releasing a blast of sword chi, Chu Yukin's body was extremely agile, floating through the air as if weightless. Because her body was nimble, her sword was astonishingly fast. After just one exchange, Liu Tong nearly got pierced by Chu Yukin's sword. Seeing his hair cut by Chu Yukin's sword, Liu Tong immediately shouted to White Crane, "Elder White, don't waste time." Liu Tong had not expected Chu Yukin's sword to be so fast. He nearly lost his life in just a brief encounter. White Crane also realized that Liu Tong might not be a match for Chu Yukin, so he quickly charged towards the convoy. Seeing this, Chu Yukin's toes lightly tapped the ground, and her body shot forward like an arrow. Immediately afterward, Chu Yukin swept her sword toward White Crane. White Crane turned his head in an instant, raised his hand with his sword and blocked Chu Yukin's slash. At that moment, White Crane said to Liu Tong, "Elder Liu, I'll keep her occupied." Upon hearing this, Liu Tong's body disappeared on the spot and he rushed straight to the carriage where Lu Chen was. Lu Chen's trusted aides saw this and all charged over, attempting to block Liu Tong's path. But Liu Tong, being a 9th grade martial artist, swung his hammer down and killed a trusted aide with a single blow. In front of Liu Tong, Lu Chen's trusted aide stood no chance at all. Seeing this, Li Feng from a distance grew anxious. Now this is trouble. He immediately ran towards Lu Chen's carriage, but just as he took a few steps, an 8th grade martial artist blocked his way. "General Li, your opponent is me." Chu Yukin also realized that Lu Chen was in danger. She immediately swung her sword frantically, and strokes of sword qi swept through the forest, instantly splitting the surrounding trees into countless fragments. However, White Crane was no simple foe. He always managed to dodge Chu Yukin's sword strikes. After all, both were 9th grade martial artists, and although he might not be as strong as Chu Yukin, stalling her wasn't too much of a problem. Chu Yukin grew desperate, seeing that Liu Tong was about to reach the carriage where Lu Chen was. If she continued to be stalled like this, Lu Chen's life would be in danger. She had promised to protect Lu Chen when his mother passed away. If something happened to Lu Chen, how could she face her sister, with whom she had formed a sworn sisterhood in the afterlife? Lu Chen cannot come to harm. Chu Yukin no longer cared about White Crane and charged directly towards Liu Tong. Seeing Chu Yukin bypass him, White Crane hurriedly rushed up, blocking her way. By this time, Liu Tong had already arrived in front of Lu Chen's carriage. He did not know which carriage Lu Chen was in, but he was ready to search them one by one. Liu Tong went straight with his hammer, and the door of the carriage was instantly smashed to pieces. Lu Chen was sitting upright inside the carriage at that moment. Seeing that he had found Lu Chen in the very first carriage he smashed, Liu Tong laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha, looks like my luck isn't too bad." Chu Yukin's face turned deathly white from a distance. "It's over. Chenner!" Li Feng was also in a state of panic. He wanted to save Lu Chen too, but the opponent in front of him was an 8th grade martial artist. While he himself was only a 7th grade martial artist, he simply couldn't get away. Just when everyone thought that the North Prince was certain to die there, Lu Chen showed a faint smile. Seeing this, Liu Tong standing in front of Lu Chen was stunned. Liu Tong asked in confusion, "Kid, what are you smiling about?" Lu Chen said nothing and simply raised his hand and shot. Bang! Accompanying the sound of gunfire, Liu Tong's body slowly toppled backward, his pupils constricted, his eyes wide open as if he couldn't believe that he had just died. At this moment, everyone focusing on Lu Chen was shocked. People couldn't process what had happened. The North Prince was surely doomed. So why did the North Prince just raise his hand and that 9th grade martial artist fell to the ground lifeless? And what was that sound just now? What exactly happened here? The death of Liu Tong terrified all the members of Blood Moon Tower present. Liu Tong was, after all, a 9th grade martial artist, and yet, just by looking at the North Prince, he was dead. Even Chu Yukin couldn't believe what she was seeing as she looked at Lu Chen. She had been ready to fight to the death for Lu Chen's revenge. Yet the situation took an instant turn. Chu Yukin had guessed how Liu Tong died. His death was definitely related to the black stick-like object in Lu Chen's hand. But she couldn't believe that object could instantly claim the life of a 9th grade martial artist. At that moment, it was as if everything hit the pause button, and both sides even forgot to fight. It took Chu Yukin a long time to finally come back to her senses. A hint of murderous intent flashed in her eyes. The ninth-grade martial artist who had attempted to assassinate Lu Chen was dead, and she absolutely could not let this one in front of her escape. Even though she did not know what Lu Chen held in his hand, it had enabled an ordinary person to possess the ability to kill a ninth-grade martial artist. That proved the item was incredibly powerful, and if word got out, it would certainly cause turmoil throughout the entire world. White Crane was still shocked by Liu Tong collapsing in an instant, and he had just come to his senses, wanting to flee from the place. However, at the moment White Crane was distracted, it seemed as though it had started to rain from the sky, with the virtual shadow of raindrops and flower petals slowly falling. The next moment, several streaks of white light appeared around White Crane's body. Only then did he realize the danger, his face turning pale. Not good. It was at that moment that Chu Yuqin whispered, "Rainfall of 9 swords." Immediately after, the virtual shadows of the raindrops and flower petals became incredibly violent, furiously assaulting White Crane's body. Combat between ninth-grade martial artists often results in victory or defeat in an instant. When a martial artist becomes distracted, it is easy for their opponent to seize the opportunity. And Chu Yuqin had seized the opportunity when White Crane was distracted, executing her most formidable sword technique directly. Watching White Crane in front of Chu Yuqin slowly fall to the ground, Lu Chen was stunned. The speed at which Chu Yuqin had struck with her sword was too fast for him to see clearly. By the time he reacted, all he saw were a few flashes of white sword light passing through the body of the ninth-grade martial artist. Then he collapsed. Is this the strength of a ninth-grade martial artist so strong? Although Lu Chen had just dealt with a ninth-grade martial artist himself, after all, he had done so with firearms. He still deeply desired to rapidly improve in the world of martial arts. Firearms are, after all, external objects. If one could utilize firearms to take advantage of another's unawareness as what happened just now, then killing a ninth-grade martial artist is no different from slaughtering a chicken. But if the opponent is on their guard, it would not be so easy for him to kill a ninth-grade martial artist, especially after seeing the speed of Chu Yuqin's sword strike. The smugness Lu Chen felt from killing a ninth-grade martial artist vanished in an instant. The people from Blood Moon Tower, seeing that both of their elders had fallen, knew that the mission had failed and thus began to flee. Retreat. Retreat quickly. The 8th grade martial artist who was entangled with Li Feng saw that both 9th grades were dead. He knew if he continued like this he might also die here, so he immediately turned and fled towards the woods without any hesitation. Seeing those from Blood Moon Tower trying to flee, Chu Yuqin coldly ordered the guard team and the prince's mansion's trusted aides, "Kill them, don't let any escape." Immediately after, the situation shifted dramatically. Led by Li Feng, his soldiers and the prince's mansion trusted aides started to round up the remaining Blood Moon Tower assassins. Although these assassins also had strengths of the 3rd or 4th grade, they were just there to make up the numbers. Their main mission was to hold back the guard team and the trusted aides of the prince's mansion until Lu Chen was successfully assassinated by their elders. Now that their mission had failed, the only option they had left was to run away. Meanwhile, seeing that the 8th grade martial artist from Blood Moon Tower was trying to escape, Lu Chen stepped out of the carriage and took out the barret. He had not used this gun before and wanted to give it a try. Chu Yuqin had intended to pursue that 8th grade martial artist, but when she saw the black stick-like thing in Lu Chen's hands, she paused for a moment. At that moment, Lu Chen quickly lay down on the ground, then aimed the black stick at the escaping Blood Moon Tower 8th grade martial artist. Boom. With a muffled yet enormous sound, the head of the escaping 8th grade martial artist burst open in an instant. Chu Yuqin was once again frozen in place. From such a distance, a 9th grade martial artist vanished in an instant. She had watched Lu Chen grow up, but she never knew that Lu Chen had such a formidable weapon. What 9th grade? 8th grade? In front of Lu Chen. It was only a matter of looking at them. Seeing that black metal staff, even Chu Yuqin, a 9th grade martial artist, couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. 8th grade, 9th grade, they all have the strength to fight against a Grandmaster, and even powerful 9th grade martial artists can fight on par with master-level martial artists. However, the once highly sought-after 8th and 9th grades were being slaughtered like chickens by Lu Chen. An ordinary man. Chu Yu-kin knew very well that Lu Chen had never practiced martial arts. He grew up under her protection, and she didn't want Lu Chen to endure the pain of martial arts training. An ordinary person, holding an unknown weapon, could instantly kill 8th and 9th grade martial artists. What did that mean? It meant that once the weapon in Lu Chen's hands was spread, the entire martial arts world would be overturned, and from now on, the status of martial artists would plummet. After a long while, Chu Yu-kin finally recovered. Now was not the time to think about these things. The priority was to quickly deal with the assassins from Blood Moon Tower. At that thought, Chu Yu-kin pushed off with the tips of her toes and sprinted towards the assassins from Blood Moon Tower. With no 9th grade martial artist from Blood Moon Tower to restrain Chu Yu-kin, those 3rd grade martial artists were no different from ants in front of her. Wherever Chu Yu-kin passed, there were only the corpses of Blood Moon Tower assassins. Soon, all the assassins from Blood Moon Tower were annihilated. Of course, Lu Chen's side also paid a steep price. Only about 100 men from Li Feng's guard team were left, and only 50 or 60 of the prince's mansion's trusted aides survived. Looking at the bodies scattered across the ground, Lu Chen felt no stirring in his heart. Chen was very clear that the road to eminence was necessarily paved with blood. Today's slaughter was just the beginning. Just as Lu Chen was lost in thought while looking at the bodies, an enchanting figure appeared behind him. "Chenner, you better confess, are you hiding something from Madame Chu?" There was a hint of grievance in Chu Yu-kin's tone. As an aunt who had watched Lu Chen grow up, and even arranged all the work in the prince's mansion, she was unaware that Lu Chen had acquired such a terrifying weapon. That kind of weapon definitely could not be Lu Chen's. No need to even think about it. What she wanted to know now was who supplied Lu Chen with such a terrifying weapon, and what their purpose was. There's no such thing as a free lunch. If someone provided Lu Chen with such a powerful weapon, they must have some conditions. Chu Yu-kin was afraid that Lu Chen would fall into an even bigger conspiracy. Now, all Chu Yu-kin wanted was for Lu Chen to live a peaceful life after he got to North City. After hearing Chu Yu-kin's voice, Lu Chen was momentarily stunned. He just wanted to test the power of firearms and had not thought about how to explain what would happen next. Those were 8th and 9th grade martial artists, and they vanished in front of him instantly. If word got out, at that moment Lu Chen turned his head to look at Chu Yu-kin and replied with an innocent and radiant smile. "Madam Chu, what could I possibly hide from you?" Seeing Lu Chen playing dumb in front of her, trying to cover it up, Chu Yu-kin sighed and continued. "Tell me, who gave you those 2 weapons you had just now?" Lu Chen feigned ignorance. "Weapons? What weapons?" Chu Yu-kin gave Lu Chen a look. "Do you think your aunt is blind?" At that moment, Lu Chen took the Black Desert Eagle out from his embrace and removed the magazine. "Are you talking about this?" Looking at the Desert Eagle in Lu Chen's hand, Chu Yu-kin was momentarily stunned after all. This was a weapon that allowed an ordinary person to instantly kill a 9th grade martial artist. Seeing Chu Yu-kin's curiosity about the Desert Eagle, Lu Chen directly handed over the unloaded gun to her. After Chu Yu-kin received the Desert Eagle, she repeatedly caressed it with her fair hands. Very curious, how exactly did this small thing kill a 9th grade martial artist? Chu Yu-kin then asked, "Chenner, where did you get this weapon from?" Chu Yu-kin happened to be a martial artist herself, and had seen many weapons. She could tell the moment she touched it that the materials used for making the Desert Eagle were not ordinary, and the precision of the weapon was beyond one's imagination. It was even possible that the royal family of the Great Xia dynasty did not possess such materials, nor could they manufacture a weapon this precise. Although Lu Chen survived with the help of this mysterious weapon, Madame Chu felt somewhat guilty at that moment. She had always protected Lu Chen's safety, yet she had still allowed the provider of this mysterious weapon to come into contact with him. What if the person did not intend to provide Lu Chen with weapons, but instead wanted to kill him? The consequences were unimaginable. Lu Chen answered with a smile. "Madame Chu, if I told you that these were parts I had made and then assembled myself, would you believe me?" Chu Yu-kin snorted lightly and said, "I am not an idiot." Lu Chen, pretending to be an adult, said, "Madame Chu, I'm also a man now. Having a bit of a man's secret is quite normal." Lu Chen's words were originally just a joke, but upon hearing them, Chu Yu-kin fell silent. Ever since Lu Chen lost his mother at the age of 10, Chu Yuqin had always looked after him, caring for him as if he was her own child. But now Lu Chen had turned 16 and was even married. She, however, subconsciously still saw him as a child. Seeing that Chu Yuqin was not speaking, Lu Chen asked with concern, "Madam Chu, what are you thinking? Is there something wrong with what I said?" Chu Yuqin came back to her senses and handed the desert eagle back to Lu Chen, showing a relieved smile on her face. "Chenner, you're right. You have grown up, you're a man now. I shouldn't continue to treat you like a child. However, I still want to remind you that the person who provided you with the weapon must have big plans. You must be careful. Also, those 2 weapons you carry must not be known to outsiders. Otherwise, even if you reach North City, you will attract continuous assassination attempts by the strong ones in the martial arts world." Lu Chen said, "Don't worry, Madam Chu. I am aware of the pros and cons." Chu Yuqin said, "All right, go and check on Zixuan and the others." Afterward, Chu Yuqin turned and left, heading towards General Li and his group. At this time, General Li and the others were cleaning up the bodies. Seeing Chu Yuqin coming over, General Li immediately asked, "Madam Chu, is the prince unharmed?" Chu Yuqin replied indifferently, "He's fine." With this, Chu Yuqin reminded, "General Li, regarding today's event, I hope you and your soldiers can act as if you've seen nothing." Hearing these words from Chu Yuqin, General Li instantly understood what she meant. Clearly, she was referring to the North Prince instantly killing a 9th-grade martial artist. The outside world rumored that the North Prince was nothing but a useless prince, who knew nothing of martial arts, did not study much, and knew only to indulge in eating, drinking, and merrymaking. When Duke Mu asked General Li to protect the North Prince on his journey to establish his feudal estate in North City, General Li was somewhat reluctant in his heart. But after witnessing today's event, it seemed that everyone was mistaken. With the North Prince holding such a terrifying weapon, he couldn't possibly be just a waste as simple as that. That was a 9th-grade martial artist, only a level below Grandmaster the 9th grade. With just one additional glance at the North Prince, that 9th-grade martial artist was no more, and that 8th-grade martial artist from such a distance. General Li himself admitted he might not have been able to shoot and kill that 8th-grade martial artist with an arrow. 8th-grade martial artists have spiritual energy within their bodies. When an arrow enters their body, they can control their muscles to catch the arrowhead. Yet the North Prince, using some unknown weapon, managed to blow the head off that 8th-grade martial artist instantly from such a distance. Moreover, at that time, the North Prince was just lying on the ground without any movement. Shooting an arrow requires drawing a bow, yet as the North Prince lay there, the life of that 8th-grade martial artist came to an end. This was enough to show how terrifying the weapon in the North Prince's hands was. Despite having such a terrifying weapon, the North Prince did not vie for the throne. He even willingly went to North City. What did this imply? Li Feng dared not think any further. He even began to suspect whether he might be silenced by the North Prince. Although he was the general of the guard team assigned to escort the North Prince to his fief, he was also a commander in the Great Xia's Huben army. The North Prince might not necessarily trust them. Thinking this, Li Feng and his men couldn't stop the cold sweat from soaking their backs. After Chu Yuqin finished reminding Li Feng and the others, she turned and left. Watching Chu Yuqin's departing figure, a soldier whispered to Li Feng, General, after we reach North City, we won't be silenced, will we?" The soldiers following Li Feng were elites from within the Huben army, and they were not dumb. They also understood what having a weapon that could instantaneously kill a 9th-grade martial artist meant. To everyone at that moment, the North Prince must have had a great scheme in mind. So to prevent the day's events from being leaked, it was highly possible that the North Prince might silence them. In order to comfort the remaining 100 or so soldiers, Li Feng immediately said, "Don't spout nonsense. You lad, we are Duke Mu's men, and Duke Mu is the North Prince's father-in-law. The North Prince will surely trust us." Hearing Li Feng's words, the soldiers came to a realization, indeed. Duke Mu was the North Prince's father-in-law, and Duke Mu's daughter was also the princess consort, weren't they? The soldiers of Duke Mu's faction equivalent to being men on the North Prince's side. Then why would the North Prince want to silence his own people for no reason? With this thought, The soldiers also breathed a sigh of relief. However, Li Feng was still quite worried at this time. Even though they were part of Duke Mu's faction, they were also part of the Great Xia's Huben army. After escorting the North Prince to North City, they were to return to the capital city. Would the North Prince really trust them? That was uncertain, but now there was no other choice but to wait until they reached North City to know the North Prince's true intentions. After cleaning up the scene, Lu Chen and his caravan set off again, continuing towards North City. A few hours later, a certain tavern. Lu Shuyun sat by the window, quietly waiting for the news to arrive. At this moment, he faintly sensed something was amiss. By all accounts, those people should have returned by now. But up till now, there was still no news. Just then, a man dressed in gray clothes hurriedly walked out. "Your Highness, there has been a grave mishap." As soon as the man entered the room, he immediately kneeled down. Lu Shuyun's brow furrowed, and he then asked in a cold voice, "What happened?" The man quickly answered, "Blood Moon Tower failed, and none of the people they dispatched have returned alive, including those 2 ninth-grade experts. Now, the Tower Master of Blood Moon Tower is in a great fury, believing we deliberately set them up, and is demanding compensation." Upon hearing his subordinate's words, Lu Shuyun's face instantly darkened. 2 ninth grade, 1 8th grade, and over 100 martial artists around the 3rd grade. Yet they couldn't even kill a useless prince. Not only did they fail to assassinate him, but all were captured, none returned. The angrier Lu Shuyun thought about it, the more furious he became. He slammed his palm down on the table, shattering the bowls and pots on it instantly. Useless, all useless. He simply couldn't fathom how they could have failed. They had gathered detailed intelligence on the entourage accompanying the North Prince on his journey northward, of which only Chu Yuqin and Li Feng were somewhat powerful. Apart from those two, there weren't even many above the 5th grade in that group, and yet Blood Moon Tower had actually failed. They actually failed! What were the assassins of Blood Moon Tower even good for? What did they feed on? With 2 ninth grade experts, even if they had no way to deal with Chu Yuqin, one could hold her off while the other took care of that useless prince. But they still failed. And now Blood Moon Tower has the audacity to demand compensation from them? They couldn't even kill a useless prince and still think about compensation? After letting off some steam, Lu Shuyun somewhat calmed down and asked emotionlessly, "Has Blood Moon Tower found out why their operation failed this time?" The man kneeling on the ground immediately answered, "Your Highness, when Blood Moon Tower sent someone to investigate, they discovered that some of their members' bodies had been scorched. When Lu Chen and the others left, they buried the bodies of their own people, while some of the assassins' bodies from Blood Moon Tower were piled up and burned. Although it wasted some time, Chu Yuqin thought it was necessary, especially for those killed by Lu Chen. Martial artists could determine how a person died from the wounds on a corpse, and to prevent Blood Moon Tower from discovering their cause of death, Chu Yuqin adopted this method of destroying the bodies and erasing the traces." Hearing his subordinate's report, Lu Shuyun became even more infuriated. It was bad enough that the mission failed, but to not even know how their people died was worse. At that moment, a subordinate beside Lu Shuyun speculated, "Your Highness, I suspect there might have been a master-level expert hidden among the North Prince's convoy." Hearing his subordinate's guess, Lu Shuyun's mind blanked for a moment, then he fell silent as various expressions flitted across his face. After a while, a spiteful look flashed in Lu Shuyun's eyes. If that's the case, then this good-for-nothing deserves even more to be erased from this world. His subordinate spoke up again. "Rest assured, Your Highness, our men have already reached North City. Even if a Grandmaster is protecting him, they will let their guard down given enough time." Freewebnovel.com. Lu Shuyun said nothing more, knowing he could only wait now. Luckily, he had a contingency plan. Lu Shuyun raised his head to look out the window, muttering to himself, "My good brother, I hope your luck lasts forever." Meanwhile, nearly everyone of status within the capital city had learned of Blood Moon Tower's failed assassination attempt, though it was unclear who had leaked the information. Imperial Palace. Royal Garden. The Sum Emperor, having received the message from the Shadow Guard, found it unbelievable. Sitting in front of the Emperor was an old man with white hair, who, seeing the Emperor's surprised expression while looking at the piece of paper, asked Your Majesty what has happened. The Sum Emperor collected himself and then tore up the paper in his hands. I never imagined that Chen might still have a Grandmaster by his side. The Chu family is really sparing no expense. Hearing this, the elder in front of the Sum Emperor paused. The Sum Emperor continued. State Preceptor, do you think the Chu family truly wishes to support Little Nine? Or are they deliberately diverting attention? The elder before the Sum Emperor was Great Xia Dynasty's national pillar, Situce, who also served as the state preceptor, often giving strategic advice to the Sum Emperor. Facing the Sum Emperor's question, Situce pondered for a moment, then responded, Your servant believes this is Chu Xiong's personal action and does not represent the entire will of the Chu family. The Sum Emperor laughed and said, Oh? Why does the state preceptor think so? Situce replied, North City is a land of bitter cold. Even if the North Prince were to go there, it would be difficult to develop North City, let alone recruit soldiers or amass strength. The Chu family is not the Chu of the Chu people. They would not possibly support a prince who has completely lost his legitimacy in the competition for the throne. But Chu Xiong is different. Chu Xiong is the North Prince's maternal grandfather, and there exists a bond of blood between them. Thus your servant believes that Chu Xiong, considering the North Prince is his own grandson, would send someone to protect him. And it's not because of the Chu family's interests. Hearing Situce's words, the Sum Emperor rose from the stone bench, laughed loudly, and said, The words of the state preceptor are quite interesting. The Chu family is not the Chu of the Chu people, ha ha ha, it reminds me of myself. This Great Xia is also not my Great Xia. The Chu family has already tied itself to the powers of the south, so it's impossible for them to mindlessly support a prince with no hope of succession. If they insist on doing so, it would lead to conflicts with those forces, which could potentially lead to the Chu family's disintegration. Therefore, the Chu family is not the Chu of the Chu people. The words of Situce also led the Sum Emperor to reflect upon his own situation. Just as the Chu family cannot do as they wish, so too, he, the emperor, is subject not to his own desires but is constrained by various forces, especially including the powerful aristocratic families like the Chu family. Duke Mu residence, seeing the pigeon letter in his hand. Mu Changtian's hand trembled slightly. This letter had been sent by Li Feng, detailing their ambush by assassins from Blood Moon Tower. When Mu Changtian saw the part of the letter stating that Blood Moon Tower had dispatched 2 9th-grade martial artists and 1 8th-grade martial artist, he thought the North Prince had indeed met with misfortune. But at the end of the letter, Li Feng told him that a mysterious master-level expert had appeared and taken care of the 2 9th-grade experts from Blood Moon Tower. This piqued Mu Changtian's curiosity. A mysterious expert? Who had been sent to protect the North Prince? Could the mysterious expert come from the Imperial Palace? As these thoughts crossed his mind, Mu Changtian's gaze turned toward the direction of the Imperial Palace, but he quickly dismissed the idea. The Sum Emperor never regarded the North Prince as his own child, even deeming him the stigma of his life, so how could he possibly send someone to protect him? Meanwhile, Lu Chen and his group had already set off again. In the month that followed, Lu Chen faced no further assassination attempts. This was largely thanks to a certain rumor that had spread throughout Capital City. Nowadays, people believed that Lu Chen was protected by a Grandmaster. With a Grandmaster around, no one would be foolish enough to assassinate him. Of course, people did not believe that the Grandmaster would stay by Lu Chen's side to protect him indefinitely. There were not many of master-level expertise throughout the whole Sum country. It was impossible for one to continuously protect a useless prince. In people's eyes, that Grandmaster would most likely only protect the North Prince until they reached North City, then depart.